through the press in many references to consumer interests and consumer concerns when really this is not in proper perspective, that their interest and their concerns, we fear, is a selfish interest, and that the things that have caused increased consumer costs are not the cost of raw products. When wheat was selling for $6 a bushel, bread was 32 cents a loaf. Last spring, when wheat was down to $3, or now when it's down below $3 a bushel, bread is selling for considerably higher than that, 36 or 7 cents a loaf, the same pound loaf of bread. So there are other factors, and those other factors are largely related to labor, and if we're really concerned about you consumers and the rest of us across this land, you'll get the thing into perspective as to what are the real costs that have escalated consumer costs over the years. We invite any of you to our press conference at...
How did the President react to the view you expressed to us?
The President's interest and his concern, as expressed again, confirms his commitment to a market economy and his commitment to the enterprise system, and this is encouraging and wholesome.
Are you satisfied with the meeting today? Or would you like to have it go a little bit further?
I was pleased with some aspects of it. I am seldom completely satisfied. I was not completely satisfied.
What were you dissatisfied with?
I'll comment at this at the press conference.
For those of us who aren't able to go there.
We have set up a press conference. The intent is to respect that press conference, and we would invite you each to be there.
Well, doesn't want to scoop himself here. Well, I think you've got to recognize as the president, as the president. But let me say, as the president, Bill said he wasn't completely satisfied. Mr. Kuhfuss represents a group of people. He represents an organization, as Mr. Meany does. And I'm sure that Mr. Meany was not completely satisfied with what came out of this arrangement, nor is Bill. But as the president pointed out, that he faced a very serious dilemma. He said he represented 214 million Americans, and you try to find the best solution possible. And I think, Bill, that was the spirit of the meeting up there, that you presented a point of view. The president said, well, I respect your point of view. There are other points of view, and we tried to resolve a very serious dilemma, the dilemma being that grain was not being loaded, the dilemma being that additional sales had to be made, the dilemma being that we were stopped in our tracks, and something had to be done. Now, you can argue, if you wish, on whether or not labor leaders were acting outside the law. The plain fact is they weren't loading the boats, and we were getting court order after court order for it. And I think that was why Bill said he wasn't completely satisfied, that the president has to choose what he conceives to be the best course, which probably satisfies nobody completely. Is that a fair statement, Bill?
Did the president promise to sell more grain to the Russians this year?
The president did indicate that there'd be more sales of grains. I think I'm in order in relating this. Likewise, there was real interest and real concern as far as our point of view is concerned, that the opportunity to merchandise and to market grain was a long-time interest of the president. Now, to get into the specifics of trying to accommodate the specifics that we had, which were to eliminate the moratorium on grain sales, to suggest that the Secretary of Labor and the labor leaders not be those in the forefront of negotiations for agriculture. We think this is a question. And likewise, a real interest and a concern that we had related to international commodity agreements. None of these were complete, satisfactory answers. I think that answers your question, and I'll be happy to comment more in detail later.
Well, but your main complaint, though, is on selling grain.
We think that it is not in proper order and not in the proper position to maintain the moratorium when the farmers were promised last summer at planting time that they would have access to world markets. And here we have, in effect, a curtailing of that world market. Russia is a part of that world market. And we cannot monitor the world market. We cannot manage the world market. We can sell we can sell from this country, or we can hold in this country. The government does not have supplies at this time, and they do not, and we do not want to get into the role of government-held supplies to be held over the marketplace in order to keep agriculture again down at a low level.
You say the president has not lived up to his commitment?
See if
Do you have a
150.
figure on how much it's
Can you
costing
say,
the
did the
farmer?
president turn you down on your request for a lifting moratorium?
The answer is, did not turn it down necessarily, but we had no particular commitment related to our comments.
He really
I
just
think we
listened
will.
to you, is that right, sir, and didn't make any...
He listened very well, and he made statements, general statements that were confirming the positions that he has taken previously, and his conviction that the market is a rightful place to give direction, and that enterprise is the difference, as I interpreted his comments, the difference between what we have in the United States and many other places of the world.
Mr. Secretary, could we ask you when you long-term agreement?
Well, as you know, the team is in Moscow now. This team went rather quickly to Moscow. There's more involved in the moratorium and the negotiation, obviously. It's tied in with the whole question of the Maritime Commission arrangements with the Russians on freight rates and American flag bottoms, with an extension of the current agreement that went into 3 years ago that involves 1/3 of the shipments in American flag bottoms, 1/3 in USSR bottoms, and 1/3 in third country bottoms. It's a very complex set of issues. All I can say is that it's got top priority in the administration. I think it has top priority with the USSR too. It has top priority with the Maritime Administration. And we are hopeful that it will be ironed out by mid-October. That's the time the President indicated last week that he felt it would be ironed out, and there's every pressure on to meet that deadline on our side and on the Russian side. And I'm hopeful. Yes, sir, I think we can.
Well, how about the oil? Is there current discussion going on the exchange of oil and...
Well, as both the President said out in the state, out in the country last weekend, and as Secretary Kissinger has said, that such things are under discussion. Whether anything will come from them at this moment, no one knows.
Well, the concern expressed that the negotiating team now in Moscow does not include anyone from the department
Oh, it
that
does.
represents the farmers.
Oh, it does. Indeed, it does. We have the head of our grain division in our Foreign Agricultural Service there.
He's one of the three.
That is correct. That is correct, and we're in constant telephone communication with him, too.
Are these negotiations concerning rates as well as the maritime agreement?
They're separate negotiations, yes, sir. They've been going on. They were going on back here in Washington, and they were transferred to Moscow. Sir?
They're not finished. The rates agreement.
As far as I'm aware, they are not
Is the
completed.
possibility of trade for oil a part of these discussions by the team in Moscow?
Could well be.
Mr. Secretary, is it the administration's hope that if there is an oil for grain swap-off, that the additional oil from the Soviets would lower that cost of living enough to offset any rise in the cost of living from the grain deal?
Oh, I don't think so. You see, we got a peculiar problem here. If American flag ships take grain to the Soviet from American ports, what do they bring back? Well, hopefully they could bring back petroleum. And it may well be that that the pricing arrangement for freight on the return trip involves some of the commitment on the petroleum deal. These are some of the things being discussed. And as I say, it's a very complex set of issues.
There's no expectation that there could be offsets in cost of living?
No, sir. No, sir.
Mr. Butz, did the Farm Bureau ask for an immediate lift?
Suggested they would like that, but the Farm Bureau didn't demand anything. They presented their point of view and said from their point of view that that would be desirable. They said the moratorium itself was
What
unfortunate.
was the President's response to that?
Well, the President's response, as I said a while ago, was that he faced a very difficult dilemma. And it seemed in the interest of negotiations generally and of a more